Hi everybody, Dan Illman, Mike Beer, race number 10 at Belmont Park on Belmont Stakes Saturday. It's the race before the Belmont, the first leg of the instant double, the first leg of the Manhattan Belmont Stakes double. It's the Manhattan, and you can bet it with your own DRF Bets account. Sign up at drf.com/bet and join the Belmont Stakes action with free cash. Let's take a look at the field for race number 10, the mile and a quarter Manhattan. $1 million is the purse. We're on the inner turf. Chad Brown, of course, very well represented. Let's begin with the number one, Robert Bruce. Undefeated in his career, a successful North American debut in the Grade 3 Fort Marcy last time out. Boy, he had a great trip.
Yeah, he really did get a really nice trip and ride in that race. Robert Bruce, as he always does, at least so far, he did the rest. Once Gaffalione gave him a look at that race in the stretch, he came on through and he won it. It was a nice performance for him. Listen, there's really nothing to knock about him. He is facing a much better field this time. He's going to stretch out a little bit, but that's not supposed to be a problem for him. There are a lot of things to like about him. I wonder how short a price he's going to be in here, Josie. And I don't know how much short a price I'd really want on him against this kind of a field. One thing I will say about him, as good a trip as he got last time, you go back and watch a lot of his races over in Chile, he likes to close this horse, and he's going to have something to run at in this race.
Beach Patrol is going to be one of the horses you have to think attending the pace or stalking it at the very least. Boy, Chad got him good when he stretched him all the way out in distance last year, although it is worth noting that he disappointed in the Manhattan last year after a good trip from Florent Geroux, basically saving ground in the pocket. It was one of the few races last year where Beach Patrol didn't thrive. After that, he ran some very big races, the Turf Classic at 1.5 miles, the Breeders' Cup Turf, a big effort. And off the layoff last time out, he caught that very wet turf course at Churchill Downs. He also caught fellow layoff horse Yoshida, who might have a lot of potential. But as Beach Patrol is going to do, he fought that horse all the way down to the effort. You can expect another solid performance.
Yeah, that's him. I mean, he just shows up and he tries his best every time. He fits this race really well. I do feel like he's the horse to beat in this race, although it is a good field. He's one of those horses, he can get any kind of trip in a race, and I think he'll get a good one in here. Personally, and I'm not going to be too hard on him for his last race off the layoff there. He likes yielding ground, though, and to me, that wasn't even close to his best race. I mean, he wasn't that badly beaten by Yoshida, but there was never a point in the stretch of that race where it looked like he was going to win. He was only second best in there. Maybe he'll take a step forward on Saturday.
There appears to be pace in the Manhattan, and that's going to help some of the closers in this race. We throw up the Timeform US pace projector. We're expecting a fast pace. And Timeform US has the pace so fast that One Go All Go, a horse that's been on the lead in his last 4 races, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th in the early portion of this race. That's hard to imagine. I would think that One Go All Go is going to be out there on the lead. But let's talk about some of these speed horses. The 6 Hello Don Julio set some fast fractions in that Knickerbocker last time out. He ran well. He's always had some potential. Distance is his friend. The question is the layoff and the big step up in class.
Yeah, it's all about whether you think he's good enough to run against horses like this, and not only to run against them, but to run his best race against them, because that's what he's going to have to do. I've always had a little thing for him. I always liked this horse, and I think he does benefit from the distance of this race. It's hard to make him good enough to beat all of these horses, especially if he's got to go fast.
It's hard to make the 5 Cacho and DA probably good enough to beat this field. He is expected to be close to that fast pace that could work against him. He ran perfectly fine first time off the claim in the Man of War. He had a very nice trip. He just wasn't good enough.
Yeah, those things are all true. He ran fine in the Man of War last time. He was just in too tough, and he's in too tough again.
Spring Quality, the 13, is also expected to be close to the pace, as he was in the Fort Marcy. Now, they weren't going very fast in the Fort Marcy, and he had the jump on Robert Bruce turning into the stretch. Now, you could look at it one of two ways. Robert Bruce was simply superior out kicking him in the lane, or Spring Quality, a very underrated horse for a great trainer in Grand Motion, needed that race off the layoff.
Yeah, this horse just getting started, too. I mean, he's a 6-year-old, but he's very lightly raced. He's only recently been turned over to turf. That's the surface that he's bred for. And listen, he's run well in all of his turf races so far. He was, I don't want to say he was no match for Robert. Robert Bruce was better than him last time, but this horse carried the ground while Robert Bruce sat right in behind and got through on the inside. This horse ran fine last time. He's going to be a big price in this race.
One Go All Go is very quietly reeled off 6 consecutive triple-digit Beyer speed figures. And last time out in the Man of War, I thought he won a solid pace over a very wet turf course, and he was just no match for High Happy and Sadler's Joy. The problem this time out for One Go All Go is he's not going to be out there by himself on the lead. Timeform US doesn't think he'll get close. I think he makes the front. I think he faces pressure, and I think this might be his Waterloo, although he's going to be a good price.
Yeah, I agree with all those things, Dan. I do think he's going to be forward again in this race. The reason that his that big long streak of triple-digit buyers is sort of under the radar because he's only got one win to show for it. He can't seem to get there first, and I think it's going to be really hard for him to win this race as well. But he's in great form.
Just shows how tough this division is. Beach Patrol has 8 consecutive triple-digit buyers coming into this race. He only has 2 wins in that span. Let's talk about Sadler's Joy, a horse that would really benefit from some pace up front. He got a little bit of pace last time out in the Man of War, and I really thought turning into the stretch he was just going to inhale those horses. He came up a little bit short that day. He always seems to fire if you give him pace. He's getting pace this time around. This is a horse who's 8-1 on the morning line. And you could make the argument that his body of work, he deserves to be a lot shorter.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, that's why I picked him in the race. It just feels like he's too big a price in here, and we'll see. You know, the one little thing that worries me about him is just it does feel like he might be a little bit better at 11 or 12 furlongs, and the 10 might be a little short for him, but it shouldn't be too short for him if they go a pace in this race. And to me, I think the more you go through this race top to bottom, they have to be racing in front of this horse in this race. And if it sets up for him, he is going to come running through the stretch, and I'm going to hope he can get there this time.
High Happy beat him in his last 2 races. High Happy beat 3 of these common rivals last time out in the Man of War. But it's worth noting that in both of those races, there was 1 speed, 1 go all go, and 1 presser. High Happy. High Happy just happens to be a better horse than 1 go all go, and is always going to get about 3 or 4 lengths jump on Sadler's Joy turning into the stretch. This time around, you've got 1 go all go, but you also have Beach Patrol. You also have Hello Don Julio. You also have a couple of other speeds. Where does High Happy play in this race if the pace is a little bit faster? Because Todd has done a great job with this horse, and this horse fired last time.
Yeah, you know, he's been really good for Pletcher in his last 3 races, I would say. He's run well in all of those. With him, I don't really worry so much that the pace is going to be faster because I don't think that necessarily has to affect him. What I worry about with High Happy is not only are they going to go faster in front of him, where he can still get a good trip, he's going to have to start racing horses this time. He's not just going to have to race 1 go, all go. He's going to have to hook up with Beach Patrol at some point, and then he's going to have to hold off the closers. And I think that makes his job a lot tougher this time. I'm not going to be surprised when he does well again in this race. I'm not going to be surprised if he even wins it, but I'm going to bet somebody else. I'm going to use him pretty heavily, though. I think he's a good horse.
A horse that I would use underneath, I'm not sure is good enough to win, is the 7 Fashion Business for the great Southern California trainer Phil D'Amato. And this horse came off a long layoff last time out. He got the class relief he needed. He got a good solid pace, and he came with a good run. D'Amato has limited positive formulator facts with these kind of horses, as we see with Fashion Business. Past year, last out winning older horses, going 2nd off the bench, 2 for 10, a positive ROI. I always thought that this horse, the son of Frankel, had a lot of potential. He ran well in the La Jolla behind the streaking Sharp Samurai. Things just haven't worked out. This is a good trainer taking a very aggressive stance with Fashion Business, and he's going to get some pace. Is he the best closer in the race? No, but maybe he picks up some pieces.
Yeah, the race is going to set up well for him. I'm with you. I think he's, you know, he's got some improving to do, but I don't see why this horse can't eventually get there. I like his trainer a lot. I like the way this race sets up for him a lot. It's just a question of whether he's good enough. He's going to be a huge price.
European Invader number 4, Alexios Komninos, last time out came off of a long layoff in a Group 1 in England, and he just caught a tough field. I mean, we know Lancaster Bomber. He came back to win the Tattersalls Gold Cup. He can obviously do better with Lasix for a good trainer in his 2nd start of the year, but he's stretching all the way out, and he catches a tough field. He was in against Sway Duatu back, and that horse came back and won the Shadwell Turf Mile.
Yeah, no, that's true. We'll see what happens. He's going to stretch out in this spot, which, you know, you just don't know how far he really wants to go. He does have some distance on the dam side, but he's not by a big stayer sire, so we'll see how far he wants to go. Lasix goes on. He's got the 1 trip from last August. He ran well in that race, but he got a perfect trip that day.
Canadian Classic winner Channel Maker has just been knocking at the door, but hasn't been able to break it down. 2 back in the kill row. Belmont, you know, that was an interesting move because we consider this horse to be more of a 10 furlong, 11 furlong type. Mott turned him back to a mile, shipped him to Southern California. He got the pace. He came with a run. He just didn't get there. I think the last race, he just didn't like that ground.
Yeah, the ground didn't have to help him. I didn't necessarily care for the ride he got in that race. Not that it was Castellano's fault, but he just got this horse buried on the rail in the upper stretch. There was no way he was going to win once he got stopped. Listen, I like this horse, Dan. I've done a little bit of chasing of him. I'm kind of over him at this point. I still think he's pretty good, though.
Multiplier made a successful turf debut for Peter Miller, going 1 1/8 miles. This is a horse, when you look at his pedigree, the factor out of a trippy mare, you think he's going to run 7 furlongs. This horse wants to run all day, but he's got to run faster.
Yeah, I like Multiplier as a horse a lot. I'm a big fan of his. I don't like him in this race.
I think Manitoulin is another horse that has an outside chance to hit the board, because in the Fort Marcy, he had no pace in his first start off the layoff. He stayed on a little bit. I think with that race under his belt for a very good trainer in Jimmy Toner, he can move forward. Is Is he good enough to win? I'm not sure, but this is a horse you might want to fool around with underneath if the pace falls apart.
Yeah, the distance helps him. A big pace in front of him will help him. He's pretty good. I've never really felt like he was, you know, a grade 1 kind of turf horse, but he's pretty good.
Let's take a look at our top selections for the Grade 1 Manhattan Stakes, the race preceding the Belmont Stakes. You're a big fan of Sadler's Joy, 8-1 on the morning line. I can't argue with that, and you can't argue with the pace setup.
Yeah, those are the things that sort of led me to him. I think there were a lot of different ways to go in this race. I think this is a really good race to keep an open mind about. I saw the price on him. I know he's going to get a better setup here. I'm going to give him one more chance.
I'm Beach Patrol's biggest fan. I love the heart and determination he shows. I wonder what kind of trip he's going to get because, again, as Mike says, they're probably going to start racing hot and heavy entering the turn, and then they still got a long way to go turning into the stretch with horses like Sadler's Joy bearing down on him. But I respect Beach Patrol. I'm hoping maybe Chad has him ready to fire second start back. Mike's going 8-10, 13-1. I'm going 10-1, 3-8 in the Grade 1 Manhattan, and you can bet it with a DRF Bets account. Join the Belmont Stakes action with free cash. Learn more at drf.com/bet. Approximate post time for the Manhattan, the race preceding the Belmont Stakes, 5:40 Eastern on Saturday. Good luck.